Imagine a world thousands of years before the legions of Rome marched, before the grand halls of Persepolis were built, even before the legendary Hanging Gardens of Babylon were a whisper. In this ancient dawn, a man, seemingly from nowhere, forged an idea that would forever alter the course of human history. He was the first to build an empire. He wasn't just a king of a city. He claimed to be the king of the universe, a master of the four quarters of the world. His name was Sargon. His empire was Akkad, and the magnificent capital city he built, the very heart of this new world order, has vanished, swallowed by the sands of time, its location one of archaeology's greatest unsolved mysteries. To understand the revolution Sargon unleashed, we must first travel back to the world before him, to the land between the two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. This was Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. Here, for centuries, the Sumerians had laid the foundations of urban life. In sprawling city-states like Ur, Uruk, and Kish, they invented writing, engineered vast irrigation canals that made the desert bloom, and built monumental temples called ziggurats that reached for the heavens. They developed complex economies, codified the first laws, and charted the movements of the stars. Each city was a world unto itself, ruled by its own king and protected by its own patron god. But this vibrant civilization was politically fractured. The city-states were in a perpetual state of conflict, constantly vying for land, water, and dominance. A king might conquer a neighboring city, but these alliances were fragile and temporary. No single ruler had ever managed to unite all of Sumer under one permanent authority. This constant instability, this cycle of war and brief truces, created a power vacuum. It was the perfect stage for an outsider, a man with radical ambition and a completely new vision for what power could be. Into this fractured world enters the legend of Sargon. We don't have his autobiography, but later Mesopotamian kings, who saw him as the ultimate role model, recorded his story. And what a story it is! It echoes tales that would be told for millennia to come. A secret birth, a high priestess mother who couldn't keep her child. He was placed in a basket of reeds, sealed with bitumen, and set adrift on the mighty Euphrates River. The current carried him downstream, where he was found by a man named Akki, a humble gardener, who raised him as his own son. Is this story literally true? Probably not, but it's brilliant political propaganda. It disconnects Sargon from the old, squabbling royal families of Sumer. It presents him as a man of the people, chosen not by earthly inheritance, but by divine fate. It's a classic rags-to-riches tale that justifies a complete upending of the established order. What we know from more reliable sources is that the historical Sargon started his career in the court of Kish, one of Sumer's most powerful cities. He served as the cupbearer to its king, Ur-Zababa. This wasn't just a waiter. A cupbearer was a trusted confidant, a position of immense influence and proximity to power. We don't know the exact details. Was it a coup, a betrayal, a civil war? But somehow, Sargon seized the throne of Kish for himself. And then, he did something no king before him had dared. He didn't just look to defend his city or raid a neighbor. He looked out at the entire map of Mesopotamia and decided he would conquer all of it. Sargon's path to creating an empire was not unopposed. His primary obstacle was a man who had almost achieved unification himself, Lugal-Zaggisi of Umma. Lugal-Zaggisi was a formidable figure who had already conquered several Sumerian cities, including Uruk and Lagash, creating a powerful, albeit traditional kingdom. He was the established strong man of Sumer. The clash between these two titans was inevitable. Sargon marched his army south. The details of the battles are lost, but the outcome is not. In a decisive campaign, Sargon defeated Lugal-Zaggisi's forces in a major battle and captured the king himself. Sargon's next move was a masterstroke of political theater. He didn't execute his rival on the spot. Instead, he put him in a yoke, a wooden neck stock, and paraded him like a captured animal to the gates of the temple of Enlil in the holy city of Nippur. This was the most sacred religious site in all of Sumer. By humiliating his rival before the chief god of the Sumerian pantheon, Sargon was sending a clear message to everyone. My power is sanctioned by the gods themselves. Your old order is finished. After this symbolic victory, the rest of Sumer fell like dominoes. Sargon fought, according to his own inscriptions, 34 battles and washed his weapons in the sea. He conquered the great cities of Ur, Lagash, and Uruk, but crucially, he did not follow the old pattern of simply looting and destroying them. Instead, he tore down their defensive walls, making them unable to rebel, and installed his own trusted men Akkadians, not Sumerians, as governors. These cities would now pay tribute and taxes directly to him. He was creating a centralized administration. To anchor this new system, he founded a brand new capital city. He named it Akkad or Agada. From here, he would rule his unprecedented realm. And this is where the mystery deepens. Despite its fame and importance, despite over a century and a half of modern archaeology in Iraq, the precise location of the city of Akkad remains completely unknown. With his military conquests complete, Sargon began the work of actually building an empire. This was more than just conquering territory. It was about knitting together disparate peoples, cultures, and economies into a single functioning state. At its zenith, the Akkadian Empire was vast, stretching from the Persian Gulf in the south, up the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, through modern-day Syria, and all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. Akkadian artifacts and influence have been found as far away as modern-day Turkey and Oman. How did one man from one city control such a vast expanse? He did it through a series of revolutionary innovations. First, he created what was likely the world's first professional standing army. His inscriptions boast of 5,400 soldiers who ate bread daily before him. This was not a citizen militia called up in times of war. This was a permanent force, loyal only to the king, paid and fed by the state. This army was the ultimate guarantor of his authority, capable of crushing rebellions anywhere in the empire. Second, he organized and protected long-distance trade on an imperial scale. The Mesopotamian heartland was rich in grain and clay, but poor in essential resources like wood, metal, and stone. Sargon's state-sponsored expeditions brought cedarwood from the mountains of Lebanon, silver from Anatolia, and valuable diorite stone from the land of Magan, believed to be modern Oman. For the first time, the entire region was a single economic zone, secured by Akkadian power. Third, and perhaps most importantly, he created an imperial bureaucracy. To run his empire, Sargon replaced the patchwork of local customs with a standardized system. He made his own Semitic language, Akkadian, the official language of administration. Scribes across the empire now wrote in Akkadian, using the cuneiform script invented by the Sumerians. He also standardized weights, measures, and even the dating system, where years were named after major events in the king's reign. For the first time in history, a single central authority was managing the affairs of millions of people from dozens of different cultures. It was a blueprint for empire that would be copied for the next 4,000 years. Sargon ruled for an impressive 56 years, establishing a dynasty that would last for over a century. But the very concept of a hereditary empire was new, and it was fragile. After Sargon's death, his sons Remush and Manishtu inherited the throne, but they also inherited a realm seething with rebellion. The Sumerian cities they had conquered did not accept Akkadian rule quietly. Both sons spent most of their reigns crisscrossing the empire, brutally putting down one revolt after another. Inscriptions detail mass slaughters and enslavements as they struggled to hold their father's creation together. Both Raimush and Manishtu were assassinated in palace conspiracies, a testament to the brutal politics of this new age. The empire seemed on the verge of collapse. Then came Sargon's grandson, Naram-Sin. He would become the most powerful and controversial ruler of the dynasty. Ascending to the throne around 2254 BCE, Naram-Sin faced what was called the Great Revolt, a massive coordinated uprising of cities from both the north and south of the empire. He met this existential threat with incredible military genius and ruthlessness, crushing the coalition in a series of 9 battles in a single year. He not only saved the empire, he expanded it to its greatest extent, campaigning in the Zagros Mountains and northern Syria. His victories were so absolute, his power so immense, that he took a step that even his grandfather, Sargon, had not dared. Naram-Sin declared himself a god. He became the divine Naram-Sin, the mighty god of Akkad. On his magnificent victory stele, now one of the star attractions of the Louvre Museum, we see him depicted as a divine being. He is larger than his soldiers, trampling his enemies underfoot. And on his head, he wears a horned helmet, an artistic symbol previously reserved exclusively for gods. He also took on Sargon's old title, King of the Four Quarters, essentially claiming dominion over the entire known world. This was the absolute peak of Akkadian power. A mortal king had made himself a living god on earth. But in this act of ultimate hubris, some saw the seeds of the empire's destruction. For about 150 years, the Akkadian Empire was the undisputed superpower of its world. And then, with shocking speed, it all fell apart. For centuries, the story of Akkad's fall was told through a Mesopotamian literary text called The Curse of Akkad. It's a dramatic tale of how the god-king Naram-Sin, in his arrogance, sacked the holy temple of Enlil in Nippur. In response, the enraged god sent the Gutians, barbarian hordes from the mountains, to destroy the empire as punishment for this sacrilege. It's a compelling story of divine retribution. But modern science and archaeology tell a different, and perhaps even more terrifying story. The first clue comes from deep within the earth. At archaeological sites like Tell Leilan in northern Syria, which was once a major Akkadian provincial capital, scientists have found a strange layer in the soil. It's a thick deposit of fine wind-blown dust and sand, indicating a sudden and dramatic shift in the environment. Below this layer, you find a thriving city. Above it, you find nothing. The city was abandoned. This evidence points to a massive, prolonged drought that began around 2200 BCE. Scientists call this the 4.2 kiloyear aridification event, a severe climate crisis that affected civilizations from the Mediterranean to the Indus Valley. For Mesopotamia, which depended entirely on river water and predictable rainfall for its agriculture, the effect would have been catastrophic. River levels dropped, canals ran dry, harvests failed year after year. Famine stalked the land, undermining the very foundation of the empire's wealth and power. It is in this context of climate collapse and societal desperation that the other factors came into play. The Gutian tribes from the Zagros Mountains, likely driven by the same drought, did indeed sweep down into the weakened and starving plains of Mesopotamia, raiding and looting. At the same time, with the central government in Akkad unable to provide food or security, the old Sumerian cities, one by one, declared their independence. The empire, which had seemed so invincible, simply disintegrated. Within a single generation, Akkadian authority vanished from the historical record. The great kings were gone, and their world had unraveled. The Akkadian Empire was short-lived, a brilliant flash in the long night of ancient history, but its legacy was profound and enduring. Akkad may have been destroyed, but the idea of Akkad, the idea of empire, was indestructible. Sargon and his successors created the political template that would be studied, copied, and adapted by virtually every major empire that followed in the ancient Near East and beyond. The Babylonians, who rose to power a few centuries later, saw themselves as the rightful heirs of Akkad. The notoriously militaristic Assyrians, who would forge an even larger empire, revered Sargon as a founding father. Even the Persians, and the successors of Alexander the Great employed many of the same techniques of imperial control that the Akkadians had pioneered 2,000 years earlier. The concept of centralized rule over diverse peoples, the use of provincial governors to manage distant territories, the maintenance of a professional standing army loyal only to the state, the implementation of a common administrative language and standardized systems, all of these were Akkadian inventions. Sargon's propaganda, his use of art and inscriptions to project an image of divinely sanctioned, universal power, became the model for royal ideology for millennia. Sargon of Akkad didn't just conquer a collection of cities. He invented a new way for humanity to organize itself on a massive scale. He proved that it was possible for one ruler, through ambition, administration, and military might, to unite the entire known world under a single banner. And what of Akkad itself? The glorious capital city, praised in ancient texts for its splendor, the nerve center of the world's first empire, it remains lost. Inscriptions tell us that Sargon built it, that his successors embellished it, and that it was the seat of immense power and wealth. Yet no one knows where it is. For decades, archaeologists have searched for it. Based on textual clues, most scholars believe it must be located somewhere in the vicinity of modern-day Baghdad, perhaps buried deep beneath its suburbs or lost in the shifting riverbeds of the Tigris. But despite countless surveys and excavations, not a single brick of the Akkadian capital has ever been definitively identified. We have the victory stele of Naram-Sin. We have thousands of cuneiform tablets from their administration. We have the letters of their merchants and the ruins of their provincial outposts. But the heart of the empire, the city that gave the empire its name, has been completely erased from the map. A city that once ruled the world is now just a ghost, a legend whispered among historians. It's a powerful and humbling reminder that even the greatest empires can be reduced to dust and mystery. The story of the Akkadian Empire is a timeless human drama. It's about ambition, innovation, and the intoxicating allure of absolute power. Sargon proved that one person's vision could reshape the world. His grandson, Naram-Sin, showed just how high that power could fly, to the point where a man could become a god in the eyes of his people. And the sudden, catastrophic collapse of their empire is a stark warning about the fragility of human civilization in the face of forces beyond our control, whether they be climate change, internal strife, or external pressures. The Akkadian Empire fell, but the ghost of Sargon and his revolutionary idea of empire has haunted the world ever since. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey into the ancient past fascinating, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories from history. We'll see you next time. This is the story of the world's first empire, its meteoric rise, and its catastrophic fall.